Welcome to Good Game, your no BS insights for crypto founders.
A lot of the things I seeded kind of vanished on me. And that pissed me off because I've built businesses in the past. My first business, I raised money for, it ended up failing, but I spent 3 years of my life living on the floor of a 1-bedroom apartment, grinding with $60K a year salary to make that work. And what happened in DeFi was these founders, I funded them or whatever, they paid themselves $200K a year salaries, and they sent me one investor update and vanished. And I was like, who the fuck did I just fund? That was obviously a big screw up. Hey, power to them that they were able to play me like that. But now I ask more, one of the first questions I ask every team is this your life's work? And are you working on any other projects? That alone filters out a lot.
Looking for your next startup idea in crypto? Check out our request for startups list and get inspired at alliance.xyz/ideas. Welcome to Good Game. Today, we're going to have DCF God on to talk about all things Degen.
Who the hell is DCF God?
DCF God is one of the most infamous, and I'd say at least a very popular anon. He's been early to a lot of projects in the space. And typically speaking, these projects come off as Degen early, and then they turn out to be household names. So Olympus DAO, I remember he was pretty early into that. Unibot, more recently, Curve, Go, Fingerprints. I can go on and on and on. Synapse Protocol. What I wanted to learn more about DCF God is what's his North Star in terms of what types of Degen products to try. I don't know. There was a funny meme that I don't know if you saw, but it was a bunch of crabs in a bowl. And then there's this hot sizzling pan. And you see one of the crabs just walking over and just falling right into the sizzling pan. And that's how I feel for every new product I try. I usually end up getting
into the pan.
Yeah. And so, but it's 1 out of 10, right? And then that's how we found out about Friendtech, right? Friendtech was this Degen product. You buy it and you're buying people, but it turns out it's kind of cool in terms of what they're building. So it's one of those one-hit wonders. And for him, his hit rate's very high compared to my hit rate. And so I'm curious on what he assesses before he tries out the product, how he finds them early, what attracts him to those types of products, things like that.
Imran, do you feel there's a massive blind spot that we have, but certainly most of the quote-unquote crypto elite has towards the Degen world? I feel there's an underground Degen community / asset class.
So funny enough, there is. I spoke to a few people and, as part of Alliance, our goal is to bring these products to the market. And usually the market sits underneath where we're all operating out of. And that's the underground Degen communities.
Okay.
It turns out these Degen communities have hundreds of millions of dollars that's ready to deploy into new products. And specifically, they do this is to, one is obviously to be early. 2 is to get insights into how it could give them a leverage against some of their counterparts. An example of this is being early into Unibot means that you could snipe pools before anyone else, which then is an edge against anyone else that wants to buy tokens off of Uniswap, as an example. That's a huge edge.
Is that even legal?
Unibot?
Yeah, I mean, no, getting an edge, getting the trade before everyone else by being early to Unibot. It's if I'm early to NASDAQ, if I'm friends with the founder of NASDAQ in the early days, I somehow have preferential treatment compared to all the other market participants.
Well, the way you'd want to think about Unibot is once you are using Unibot allows you to snipe pools before anyone else, right? As soon as it launches.
Mm-hmm.
So that compared to a retail person copy pasting the wallet address onto Uniswap and buying the token, you're competing against them essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that perspective, I don't find that to be illegal.
Oh, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I meant by that. Yeah.
Okay.
There are many reasons why these Degen communities want to try it. One is because they're crazy enough to try it, right? If you think about our past conversations, you have a community that believes in pro speculation and that crypto is all about gambling and speculating. And then you have another community that hates it. In fact, I just saw a tweet the other day where one of the VCs in the space said, I love seeing products that use no speculation and it's really solving a real world problem. cool, but that's like of the 100% of the pie, maybe that's like 5 or 10%, right? Like, I don't know, Chainalysis? Like, I don't know. So the customer base is very bifurcated, and the ones that are Degen are operating like these degenerate communities or Degen communities with hundreds of millions of dollars that's ready to deploy.
Are they like individuals and then they just pool money together, form a group, and then ape into stuff and leverage their combined resources and influence on Twitter to gain an edge?
Yeah, so there's some that they operate individually. There's some that operate in teams, and there's some that operate as a collective. So there's
like e-girl capital,
like e-girl capital, right?
Yeah, they're not fully anon.
Yeah,
we know a lot of them, their real identity, and there's a few that we don't know.
Yeah,
who they are. Degen Spartan is a full anon to me, but CL is a real person to me.
Yeah,
or real cat to me.
Yeah, real cat. What's interesting is I don't think anyone really knows how big this community is, this Degen community that sits underground. And they're very big. I mean, even if you look at, some of the early protocols that launch, all of a sudden they get 50, 100 million TVL. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
It comes from them.
Yeah. A lot of these protocols are, almost all of them are not VC funded. They're built by anons or independent, less well-known founders.
Yeah. There's one that I can talk about publicly. His name is CBB. And he is the largest farmer on Blur. He is now the largest farmer, or one of the largest farmers on Frontech. And he's moving over to Morpho next. So it seems like he's building an identity for himself. And he's starting to become more visible as far as what he can bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And I think more and more of the Degen community should do that, because that's an edge against the people that are behind reputable firms that sit on top. Mm-hmm. That's like a very interesting angle that I'd love to learn more about. The second area, do you have anything else to add to this?
No, go ahead.
The second area I think I'd love to talk to DCF God about is companies that are fucking up. Look, there's pros and cons to launching protocols, right? I mean, they're a startup, but they're a startup with additional governance rights that's given to the community in real time. And so that feedback loop is there. But the question is, who's providing the right checks and balances to make sure that these protocols are actually operating the way they should? Mm-hmm. Are the community people, are the individuals of these community aligned with the protocol's vision and goal? Are they taking advantage of the protocol's treasury? Are there people that are malicious? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of interesting insights that I'm starting to see over the past 2 years. But DCF God has called out almost each and every one of them publicly.
And it takes an anon to call out these supposedly big name projects. Oftentimes I find myself in a situation where I want to call out somebody. I just can't do it because I'm putting my own reputation and our reputation on the table. That's why these anons on Twitter are such a powerful force in our community.
Yeah, they're a powerful force, and they also take a lot of heat. DCF God got a lot of shit for calling out the nouns community. There was a lot of tweets against him. I could go on and on about the stuff people had said about him. Mm-hmm. But at the end, he was right. I mean, I was a part of the community early on, and I ended up selling my NFT because I started to see the things that they were voting on, and it didn't align with the vision of where I thought nouns would have gone, to be quite frank. Mm-hmm. So for me, I rage quit, right? And that's an easy way out for me. If it doesn't align with my ethos, I'm out. But
you're not going to call them out in the public. You just quit, and it takes an anon to actually do that, to do the calling out.
That's right. So there's probably like 4 or 5 projects I'd love to talk to him about where he actually called them out, and I'm curious on what were the checks and balances that they put into place. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we're going to cover. So let's bring on DCF God and let's talk a bit more about this underground world.
Let's do it.
All right, welcome to Good Game. We have DCF God. So what is this avatar that you have? This looks kind of cool. Is it an NFT?
Yeah, so it's an NFT project called Anata NFT, which is actually a project I'm extremely involved with, but they have like a massive treasury of ETH. It's one of the few projects that's like actually a DAO. There's all the money is on chain, and they continue to ship and ship and ship. And they've gotten these NFTs to the point where they're extremely useful for anons. Like I can do a bunch of emotes. Like, I don't know, I can even move myself around. I can become a tiny little chibi if I want. I can like move my hands up and down. I can do a little dance. Like, it's awesome. And then
I mean, I
on
can't
top
even
of
dance, so this is like a plus
yeah,
one already.
you're stuck. That's what I'm saying. Like nowadays, it's way better to be an anon. Before, the biggest hole was I couldn't get on video calls. Like I would do a call, like a investment call, and it would feel really awkward because the other people would be looking at a black square, right?
Yeah.
And if they're staring at a black square, then they often feel inclined to just turn their video off, and it's a
Yeah.
really awkward interaction. But if their video's on and my video's on, now it feels like you're talking to me, but I don't even have to like dox my face or anything like that. I have like a full identity outside of just a PFP. And then they also like hand drew 2,000 PFPs. So the PFP for this NFT is also awesome. So like my full identity can just be taken over with one NFT, and it's like less than a single ETH. So really happy with it.
You don't have to convince me. I'm buying an NFT after this.
Let's go. I like that.
Are you using your real voice?
Yeah, I'm using my real voice, but there's a Chrome extension that we partner with called Hologram. I'm actually invested one of their investors, and they have like voice modulators built in. So if people want to get like super anon, then you can just activate a voice modulator, connect your NFT, and kabam,
Nice. What does DCF stand for?
discount cash flow.
I feel like that reveals a little bit of your identity.
The background, yeah, a little bit. But nowadays, people like to refer to it as dump comes fast because they tell me I keep selling shit. But Tetranode managed to coin the term. But yeah, that's me.
Awesome. I think you and I have interacted probably past few years. I think we did a couple deals. So
I remember you from DeFi Summer, but I've never talked to you before.
Yeah, I'm pretty hidden, and I'm in like a lot of little niches, like little RFV scenes, or I find tiny projects and try to buy a lot of them. I really like these undervalued things. So if you're seeing me around, your project's probably pretty cheap. And if you're not seeing me around, you're paying too much.
Nice. I mean, there's a couple questions I have, but the first one is, how big is the underground Degen community? Because I don't think a lot of people really know how big it is.
Yeah, well, it's actually pretty small, to be honest. And that's why there's a lot of these projects with like massive treasuries that just aren't being valued well by more traditional investors or like richer whales or funds and things along those lines, right? And I find when I go from trade to trade, you tend to see similar faces kind of like over and over again. You can even see like on-chain analytics. I think if you look at something like Unibot versus Banana Bot versus whatever the like trading bot of the week is, it's basically the same tiny subset of like 10,000 or less users that are using them, but they're just like really high fees that they get good revenues. Even if you look at like on-chain NFTs, swap volumes are like extremely low. Active wallets are extremely low. I think right for what happens with on-chain stuff is typically ETH BTC explode, then we get this like shitcoin follow trade, and then we get the wave of people coming to like try the on-chain degen stuff. But otherwise, like we need ETH BTC to pop first.
So I think there's two parts to this community, right? You have the Degen community that's retail, and then Degen community that's like whales and collectives.
Okay.
And the whales and collectives, I've heard there's many groups here that, I don't know, have on-chain aggregation of over 100 million. Have you heard the same thing, or is this just a rumor?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Like you can just look at people's wallet addresses.
Yeah.
Like there's someone that hunted down like Kobe I saw the other day, and people are saying he's like worth over $1 billion, you know? Or I saw like if you look at Tetranode's public address, this guy's like over $20 million. Or I think if you just go from trade to trade, look at the top wallets, you'll see like there's a lot of on-chain wealth, and it's kind of hard to allocate. A good trick would just be to look at the people who are farming Prisma. Like those are probably the pretty degenerate people, and it's pretty high yields. And there's some like few hundred mil TVL. Like all the people that are in there, I would just like tag as a more active degen or farmer type, and then see what they do.
What the hell is Prisma?
Oh, damn. You're not farming Prisma? Bro, that's
No.
like 40% plus APRs right now on size. There's like over $100 million earning 40% APR.
I've been following Prisma,
take a look.
but I haven't been farming it, so I'm already out.
40%.
Hey,
Isn't that rookie numbers compared to DeFi Summer?
that is rookie numbers for DeFi Summer, but there's very few farms that can print at high yields, right? Right now, if you are like a whale and you want to print decent yields, like you really only have for high trusted places, you really only have like Convex, Aura, or like DSR, right? And now Prisma came along, Prisma is basically funded by the Convex Curve teams, has really good audits, like obviously has a lot of trust around them. Like Tetranode and these guys are all investors and they've been like shilling it and got really high TVL. And you can farm it straight through Convex. So Convex launched CVX Prisma. Previously, they were only CVX Curve and CVX FXS. And then now their third ecosystem is CVX Prisma. And that's like a huge, huge stamp of approval and trust. And so if you just farm it through Convex using their boosts and stuff, it's currently like 40% plus APRs on size. So I don't know. People who are in DSR, I'm like, I got out of it quickly and I've been farming there.
So maybe let's talk about the Curve-Convex Flywheel. I know recently, maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, whenever it was, you were part of the bailout for Curve.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
The bailout for
Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, okay.
Couple thoughts. Like, how did you analyze that deal? And why did you think it was a good bet at the time?
My analysis wasn't really anything. I just got a DM saying, do you want Curve at 40 cents? And I was like, yes, I want Curve at 40 cents. That sounds crazy cheap. And I find that there's 10% of the time when like CT is like fudding the shit out of something, it's real and you should get out, like Terra. But the other 90% of the time, it's like they over FUD it and it's opportunity to buy, right?
Yeah.
And I found this over and over and over again. Like, give NXM a look. Like, CT fudded NXM, Nexus Mutual. Crypto Twitter fudded Nexus Mutual to 1/3 of the ETH in the MCR. And the Nexus Mutual documentation literally says NXM holders own all of the MCR, right? So you could like literally short ETH, long NXM, and all you have to do is hope that they aren't thieves. You would get a 3x, right? Yeah. Or if you wanted to buy ETH, you could have just bought NXM instead. And over the last like 4 to 6 months, without a single person coming into Discord and writing their own proposals, forcing the team to do anything, the team has put out a bunch of proposals for how to get NXM back to book value. And essentially what they're doing is they're using the ETH in the MCR to buy back NXM on the AMM up to book value price, up to like 200,000 ETH or 20,000 or some like crazy high number, right? And it's like basically now it's like 5% off peg. And it's like, well, everyone that got scared that he was going to be a thief or they were going to get rugged or something was wrong. And all you had to do was trust that he wasn't. Like, this is a fully doxed Australian guy that's been in DeFi since 2017 and has never been hacked.
And they're good guys. We spoke with them.
That's the most trusty thing, right? And I think oftentimes all you have to do is have a little faith that the people building DeFi are not all Do Kwon, right? And I fundamentally believe that the Curve guys are not Do Kwon. Like, the Curve guys built what I would say really started DeFi summer. Like, Yearn, Curve, like that was the ecosystem that really got me into it. And so much of our yields, like Convex, even the whole design of like VE, BAL, and Aura, it all comes from them, right? This is one of the best teams in DeFi. We saw Curve USD come out, and instead of just like forking Liquidity or launching another maker or another centralized coin, they innovated, right? There's like soft liquidations and things like that, and it gets like real adoption, low rates. So I'm like, this is one of the best teams in DeFi, lowest exploit risk, still innovates and is always pushing new stuff. And you want to sell me tokens at like 40 cents, which is extremely low market cap, just because the founder might have to force sell some. Like, yeah, I'll take that bet any day. And it's like paid off. And the best part was at the same time of that trade, people were getting fudded so hard that he was going to be liquidated that they were selling Convex Curve down to like 88.8 Curve per CVX Curve. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I got the Curve, I just instantly swapped it to Convex Curve and made another like 30% ARB, because Convex Curve repegged pretty quickly after. Like, all you need to do is look at the DeFi War site and you'll see that like Convex Curve, SD Curve, and Y Curve typically trade at like very close to peg.
Oh man, I missed DeFi summer. That was the year I did shit like this, like exactly what you described. But ever since I started Alliance, I just don't have time.
You haven't had a time. Yeah. There's only two things to do in the bear market: build and buy stuff that everyone else doesn't realize that they're selling when they shouldn't be.
Yeah. I guess my next question is, how do you find these projects? What do you look for? Here's a quick example, right? What we do within Alliance is we have startups that apply to our program. We're an accelerator program, and many of these products are Degen products, right? And they're products for DeFi. And the biggest problem that they have is, how do you attract the Degen community to their MVP or their early launch? It turns out it's actually very hard for someone that's coming outside of the community to actually break into the Degen community. And so I'm curious on what you look for and what would be the advice that you would give to founders like what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. There's like a bunch of projects that I'm also invested in that have similar problems, right? And a lot of times I see people get a little like disgruntled or frustrated by like the degen people that are just like, oh, when airdrop, when moon, and like that kind of mindset. And they're like, I'm not building for that person. I'm going to build for like the banks or like, I don't know, the funds or like the rich people and things like that. But what I think these people are completely missing on is that like adoption curve. If you look at technology adoption curve, it's very clear that you have to get early adopters before you get like the people with the real money, right? No rich person's coming along or rich companies coming along and saying, yeah, let me deposit in this protocol with zero TVL, right? Mm-hmm. But the only person that's going to deposit in a protocol with zero TVL is like the degen minded person, first of all, right? Second is there is no on-chain user that is active that isn't in that like kind of like CT degen mindset. I don't think like on-chain users are like funds are on-chain users. They're just like investing in seed deals and waiting around or like convex farming. But they would get completely obliterated if they trusted a project and then there was an exploit and they lost all their LP monies, right? Like their risk assessments just don't let them, even if there's high yields, because we've seen like real exploits and things like that happen. So I guess that first piece of that is understanding that you have to get this user. It's not like, should I go after this user? Is it worth doing? I think it's like, that is your first user for like most projects that care about building anything on chain. Then the second piece is now, how do I get this user? Well, people aren't retarded anymore. Like people used to be dumb and we didn't understand these mechanisms, but we got smart, right? Like Olympus and all these kind of like bonding projects with extremely high yields. Maybe some of us believed those yields were real yields in the past. But now I think we're all starting to understand that those yields aren't real yields. So you can't just like slap like emissions, like a rebasing emissions schedule on and then continue to mint more and more tokens and hope people will hold your token to zero because they're getting extremely high like fake emissions. That doesn't work anymore, right? If you look at like where they are, they're looking for real TVLs that earn revenues and get passed to them, real buybacks, like create some sort of like token flywheel, describe it well, and have like trust. And trust means good audits and the faces that they're seeing every day, right? Like having a fund's name on your list actually, I think, does less for getting you users than having like Tetranode tweet the shit out of your thing and actually use it with his own money, right? Like I've co-invested with a lot of funds and they don't even be the first user of the product. Like they're not even like farming when the thing comes out. And I'm like, well, that makes no sense. Why did you even invest in this, right? Find the person that's gonna be like, okay, on day zero, I'm gonna give you TVL and I'm gonna use it and I'm gonna talk about me using it. And that's only if I like it. They don't have to like be paid shills or anything, but get investors that are in the community already that are gonna use the thing and reward them well for using it. And then make sure that the flywheel makes sense and the value is being driven to your token holders who are them, and the value is not being driven to some like side labs entity or garbage like that. And I think like the marketing from there, if the flywheel or Ponzi or tokenomics or whatever you want to call it works, we'll handle the rest.
I think what you just said there is so fucking spot on, because I know for a fact
do a little dance for it.
You might have to spill his water. Some of our startups, when they go on and pitch VCs, some VCs would ask them what their go-to-market strategy is, and a lot of them want to hear something super, super creative. But the fact of the matter is, the most obvious thing for most DeFi protocols to do in the early days to get their first users is to find those DeFi whales on Twitter and just DM them one at a time. And do hundreds of those. And then hopefully 5% of those convert. It's not sexy, but it's the most effective thing to do. It works.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see Tetranode has 20 mil in his wallet. You want 1 mil TVL to launch, just like send him a DM and like convince him your thing is good and well audited and safe. And he'll deposit $1 million, right? And make sure the farm is better than any other farm he's in.
What logos do you want to see from an audit company? Because there's so many audit companies that are out there, right?
Yeah.
What are the typical audit companies that you want to see?
Well, Trail of Bits is like pretty good in terms of like their reputation and whatnot. So I like them, but they audited R and R just got exploited. So that was like crazy for me to see. And I also like Zelic just because I met them before. They audited like Layer Zero, and I have a lot of trust in Layer Zero just because like they're pretty well doxed. They haven't been exploited. Like they came and saved the day with the Phantom Bridge and things like that. I just want to see that like there's enough audits, and you didn't just like buy one of those audits that will just AI audit you and like put something on your website saying like, oh, we looked at it, but we have no responsibility for it. What I really liked was when things had Sherlock audits, because then I knew if there was an exploit, there was also insurance with it. Like I was in Sentiment because they had the Sherlock audit, and then Sentiment got exploited, and then Sherlock was offering to cover the issue, right? And that was like, okay, now I have a lot of trust. So I think projects should spend on those kind of creative audits that also give me some safety, at least for your first few mil TVL. Like you don't need to get audit insurance on like 100 mil TVL or something like that, but you should get it on the first little bit so that you can get your initial users, have them be comfortable. And if anything does happen, then you have that protection, and it's not like a extremely expensive thing to protect. But you want to get enough TVL to make the flywheel like kind of kickstart, right?
Nice. Sherlock actually went through our program.
Oh, there you go. I like their idea and I like their product, but I think they got exploited a few too many times. It was just unfortunate with Euler and Sentiment like back to back, basically.
We've seen some of the investor emails come out talking about that. So
yeah.
I spoke with the founder of Sherlock right after those two incidents that you mentioned. I just know the founder just wanted to make things right for the user, for the LPs.
I really think it was just bad luck. Like I was literally in both of those exact projects too. And I too thought these are like extremely high trust. Like, you know, I'm not like reading the code or anything. And a bit of my like sense is like a third eye. I'm like, ooh, this one feels good and that one doesn't feel good. So it's hard to really say, but I was using both, and a lot of people I trust for using both. It's not like Paradigm wasn't a huge investor in Euler, and it's not like Euler didn't get like a gazillion audits. I remember them flaunting like 20 times they were re-audited. Their mistake was that they added new code without any audit, and then that little piece of added code got exploited, right? It was something about like being able to donate or tip or something like that. You're like extra gas or some tiny like pointless feature. So unless it is, just don't add those tiny things unless it's going to result in real growth. Like that optimization is okay to miss. Let the people pay a few extra cents in gas fees.
So you look at whether or not the mechanism is sound, whether or not they got audited, whether or not Tetranode is in.
Other degens, like this is for like if I'm going to join a early project, if I like the idea, if I'm investing myself. But like if I'm buying a project, it's a very different trade, right?
Do you look at the founders? Like what is a good founder that you would trust?
This is actually something that I've been working on more. So last cycle, I would say like in the bull, when I was doing like seed rounds and things like that, I didn't do enough research on the founders. I was just kind of believing like, if you're in crypto right now, you must be like really early or smart enough or good at this. And that was a mistake because a lot of the things I seeded kind of vanished on me. And that pissed me off because like I've built businesses in the past. My first business, like I raised money for, it ended up failing, but I spent like 3 years of my life living on the floor of a 1-bedroom apartment, grinding with like 60K a year salary to make that work. And what happened in DeFi was like these founders, I funded them or whatever, they paid themselves 200K a year salaries, and they sent me like one investor update and vanished. And I was like, who the fuck did I just fund? Like that was obviously a big screw up. Like, hey, power to them that they were able to like play me like that. But now I ask more, like one of the first questions I ask every team is this your life's work? And are you working on any other projects? That alone filters out a lot, because I found there's a lot of founders in DeFi that are like building 4 projects. I'm like, how do you have the time to build 4 separate businesses at once? Like this is supposed to be like a grind, like 8 to 12 hours a day, like go out there and win. You don't build like a $1 billion outcome half working on 5 different things. At least I don't believe it. You know, maybe you can, but when I'm investing in people, I want to know that like this is their baby, they're dedicated to it. And if in the worst case they need to fork or they need to start something else and they want to keep using our funds, then, you know, we're going to have ownership in that new thing. Like I also saw projects like fork onto something else or launch something else and then give investors none of that new thing. It was like they just quickly wanted to like screw them over because, oh, that one old experiment didn't work.
This happens quite often, actually.
Yeah, in Web 2, that would never happen. Like the point of Web 2 oftentimes is you invest in founders, not their current idea, because you know that they have to pivot lots of times to land on the idea that's going to work, right? Like the idea you're funding, hey, maybe it's working right now, but sometimes they'll find some like niche within there that doesn't work and they'll pivot to focus on that niche and then they'll grow that niche instead. But you'll still own the business you invested in, or you'll still own the team, or not own, but you'll still be invested in that team. Whereas in DeFi, if they find some new idea, they'll be like, all right, let the tokenomics play out. Let's disappear, run up some new alts, and we'll try that pivot and raise again. I really didn't like that. So what I look for, even more than technical chops, is just like dedication, ability to figure out, and making sure like this is your life's work and you understand what you're getting into by raising. If you don't want to do that, then don't raise. Like you can build stuff without raising. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think I bought one of the first nouns within the first, like, let's say 60 days.
Oh, nouns drama.
Yeah, we'll start with that. But there's a lot of other things that we could talk about.
Yeah.
What I like about your tweets is you're calling out the things that I would love to call out, but I can't.
Why can't you?
We're doxed folks, right? And there's
okay, yeah.
internal ties that we have to a lot of these communities, direct or indirect. But, there are things that we can't say or do. Just can't.
Yeah.
The only time we ever called out anyone in this space was Sam. And that was like far beyond the tipping point. Like we had to do it. But aside from extreme cases like that, most of the time we can call people out.
Yeah. So on that note, actually, like that's interesting to me because there's a lot of times when I've been in trades and I've asked the VCs, like, why are you not doing anything about this? Right? Like even NXM, when it was like a third of book value or half of book value, I asked some of their like investors, like, why aren't you writing a proposal or why aren't you like working on anything? Why aren't we like pushing back a little bit to make sure that you're not getting like rugged on your token value? If you believe that's the case, right? Because some of them were even selling, like the funds were selling, but not saying anything to fix it. I was like, why would you sell your token at half of book value when you can instead do the work to get your token to trade to book value? Like that's the point of governance, right? It's the point of being an investor. You could even call up Hugh and ask him that. And their answer was, we have to be founder aligned. They're worried that they won't be able to get future deals if they suddenly become the villain or if they suddenly aren't founder aligned. So it's like a real thing that funds and people worry about is like calling people out because it could result in worse deal flow down the road. But like in my mind, if you're not going to let me invest because I said something like it is, then you probably shouldn't be trusting you anyway,
Yeah, there's other second order effects as well that hits all of us that we can talk about. But specifically around nouns, what I disliked was the fact that they would fund stupid shit.
Yeah. Same.
I mean, I'm going to say it point blank.
Yeah.
I was just very annoyed.
What's an example?
I don't know, t-shirts of 100 grand for t-shirts. I mean, events where they want to take the entire event space and turn it into a nouns thing where they're going to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars. What else did you see, DCF?
There's so many examples. My favorite one that people don't really like call out or talk about much is this project called Worst Case Decision. If you just go to worstcasedecision.com and watch an episode, you will see what I mean. But at the top of their website, they have a sticky bar and it says, Season 3 has been sponsored by NounsDAO. And look, when they came to NounsDAO, Season 2 wasn't even out. There was a single episode of Season 1 out. And then they asked for some like huge ask. Like, let me just check what their ask was. Yeah, 50 ETH. So like 100 grand. So they asked for like 100 grand for this. And today, now like a year later, Season 2 never came out and Season 3 still hasn't come out. And the bro just walked away with 100 grand. And I'm like, so when does Season 2 and Season 3 come up? And he said he's going to like work with the Nouns community to figure out their ideas and things like that they'll do and like put noggles on stuff. I think if anyone is watching this, when this is live, just like do me a favor and go watch an episode on worstcasedecision.com. And you guys should watch this after too, but it'll like blow your mind. Like you'll be like, why did we fund this? But anyways, that's like one example. There's tons of examples. There was a huge spend, I think like a few $100K or something to like do a backflip, like just random shit like that.
They were approved, right?
They were approved. And like, look, I think that Nouns is actually genuine. Like it is one of the best cases. Like when we were building Anata, I'm extremely envious of Nouns because people show up and vote, and people that show up and vote in Nouns, they're real meme people that were there. Like they wanted to spend on this stuff. They weren't like, what's my ROI? Should we get burned down? And I think every other project is like that. It's like, okay, what's the ROI of this? What's our burn on this? How much of our treasury is this using? But Nouns people, they're just like, lol, that's hilarious. Yes. And that's because the Nounders did a good job in like cultivating a community that really felt that every additional noun was not backing for the noun, but revenue for the DAO. And it was like, look, if we're going to get 100 ETH tomorrow anyway, we might as well just yeet it today and try something. Maybe someone will see this backflip and it'll go extremely viral, and that will be the thing that kicks Nouns off. And I think coming into this bear market after we've spent, I think they spent like $50 million or something like that across all the proposals. The lesson to me was that you can't buy culture. I personally think that experiment failed, right? You can't buy culture. And their mistake was that they continued to spend and spend and spend to try to buy culture. And a lot of the people voting fully believed that culture could be bought. And they did random shit. And yes, a lot of it could have been like 1/10 of the cost. But when it comes to like getting a DAO to do something, it's hard because you don't have like a manager or like a finance person. You kind of just have to accept whatever comes your way. And if someone says like, I want 100 grand, then the only thing you can say is no. And then they're going to come back and ask for 95 grand. And you say no. And then they come ask for 90. And it's basically like whatever they ask for is what you have to give them. Otherwise, you have to deal with it kind of forever, or just flat out say, don't even try again. And so people are incentivized to ask for as much as possible because there's no oversight, there's no management. And that's not a problem with Nouns. That's a problem with the DAOs in general. Like Nouns is probably one of the best DAOs because people do make proposals and people do vote. In other DAOs, people don't even make proposals and make people vote. But then what happened later in Nouns is just like anything is enough time solves the issue. And over enough time, a community within the Nouns DAO realized that we're burning money too fast and we're selling Nouns for like half a book value, which is like the value per ETH. And those people wanted Nouns to be worth at least book value. And if they wanted out, they had to either leave with a massive loss or they had to sell. And if they listed on Blur or OpenSea to try to sell, then they were actually competing against the DAO every single day to sell a noun, because every day the DAO sells a noun. So it was just like you had sellers fighting their own DAO to like try to sell the next noun. And like it just kept pushing prices down and down and down. And it got to the point where enough of the community, at least half the community, said, enough is enough. Just let us get our piece of book value and leave you alone. And that's essentially what happened. And I think that was a really healthy outcome, right? It costed way too much. It took way too long to get there. But at the end of the day, the DAO got there. And there's a really cool mechanism now for other DAOs to legally allow people to rage quit through this fork mechanism. And that's another thing I liked about Nouns is when they do things, they tend to enable something new, right? Like with the forking mechanism, before every project has had to rage quit, and they were always complaining about legals. But then Nouns figured out a way to legally do a rage quit, which is you allow holders to leave into their own DAO. And instead of giving holders money, you're just funding a new project, which is their DAO. And then in their DAO, they're voting to rage quit. So the legal issue doesn't become your own, it becomes the new DAO's issue. And if there's ever a legal problem, people can sue new DAO, right? Because they did the rage quit, not you. And they did this like a few times, like even with Prop House or even with their voting style where the quorum moves based on how many people voted no. And they have a lot of cool innovations like that. But did they spend insanely? Yes. Should they have spent less? Absolutely yes. But I do think a lot of it was just like genuine spend and not a grift. Whereas in other projects I've seen, there's like honest like theft and grifting and things along those lines. And I hate that way more than what I saw in Nouns. Nouns is just like fun drama because, if you spend on something dumb, it's like fun to laugh at or tweet or talk about or things like that. But it's all in like good spirits in my mind.
Yeah, I think the Nouns community generally, the reason why I bought it is because of the community and the culture, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's still true today. But the decision making was what really pushed me over the edge.
Yeah.
And so kudos to you for calling that out early, because I think it was because of your tweets, which I think you got a lot of heat for.
I still get a lot of heat for. I'm blocked by a lot of them. And I think a lot of OGs in crypto stopped liking me after that one. But like at the end of the day, I wasn't even like the biggest force within the DAO that was pushing for it. But I felt that the rest of crypto needed to kind of like see it. And we all can learn from it too. Like the Nounders at the end did do some savage shit. Like I think the alien punk thing was like, that was wrong. And I think that was them reacting to pressure of like losing their baby. And I could see anyone reacting to that, but I do outright think they made the wrong choice there, even like supporting that kind of stuff or pushing for that kind of stuff, which was like, let's just fuck everyone in our own DAO who are our own holders. It's like their money. Like, you want them to leave with fair value so they can move on and be happy. Why screw them because they want to move on? It's not like it's someone else's money or things like that, right? So yeah, at the end, I think they got too savage, but I hope that they've realized that and now we'll like figure it out. Right now, they're talking about some like crazy burn type stuff, but I'm glad that I'm out. Others that are thinking along our mindset that are more financially minded are out. And if they want to do whatever they want to do, it's their own doubt. They can vote to do that. And everyone that wants to leave can always fork and leave, and that's fair too. So
the next area I want to touch on is Aragon. I know there was a lot of back and forth with Aragon that you had recently. Maybe a quick summary on what Aragon did, how the founders responded, which I saw as well, which was kind of shady at first. But yeah, and then I would love to hear about that.
So again, Aragon, like I don't talk to the team, so I don't have a lot of insight on their side, but I can tell you like what my perception is. And my perception on Aragon is actually a lot more negative than with Nouns. Like I'm pretty disappointed there, and I would say a little bit frustrated. There's even a current proposal right now from a legal firm that wants to get money from the DAO to sue the Aragon Association for their most recent move. So for me, how this all started was I saw a TechCrunch article that said Aragon is moving to a DAO and all the funds from the Aragon treasury are going to be in the DAO. And when I saw that, I was like, that's amazing. I'm like a crypto native. I really like projects that are transparent, that money's on chain and things like that. So I started looking into Aragon and I noticed that it was extremely undervalued, right? Like it traded at half of the amount of money that was going to move from the association into the DAO as its like market cap. So that's crazy, right? Like if you have a business with like $100 million in cash and it trades at a 50 mil cap, obviously you buy that business, right? So started investing in Aragon because I thought it was pretty undervalued. Then I think some people tracked my wallets and there's other people that bought, and like a group of people that thought Aragon was undervalued started forming. People started buying, yada, yada, yada. And then after Rook happened, there was someone that went from Rook.
What was with Rook? What happened with Rook again?
So Rook was another case of the treasury being trading far, far below the market cap, right? And what happened in Rook was the team decided that they suddenly didn't want to be a DAO. And they put up a proposal that the Rook token would be deleted and 80% of the treasury would go to the team and Rook holders would claim 20% of the treasury for themselves. And it was something like $20 million or something crazy like that would go straight to the Rook team to continue to build Rook for themselves. Like they make a new entity, they own 100% of it, and they get all the cash and they build themselves a new business. And the remaining money could go into a holders DAO to do whatever holders want to do. And that pissed me off because they took this mechanism from Nouns after I recommended it in the Discord. I was like, look, Nouns are doing this legal rage quit. Why don't we do that too? Right? And they saw that and they said, oh yeah, why don't we do that too? But instead of giving everyone a fair piece of the treasury, let's use the fork to let all Rook holders, including ourselves, claim 20% of the cash and we'll keep the rest. And the worst part about that was the Rook treasury was not funded by investors. It wasn't like they raised some VC round and that's how treasury got there. The Rook treasury was funded by dumping Rook tokens on the market. Literally.
Hey, wasn't this the project that Three Arrows was shilling in DeFi Summer?
Oh, yes.
This is it.
I remember that.
The chess. Remember the chess? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Flashbots competitor. Like Messi was investing in it. Honestly, like they're good builders.
Oh, yes. Messi showed that. I
Yeah.
remember that.
They're good builders. The product worked. Like the treasury grew like crazy because what they did was they said, look, if you come swap on our site or use our MEV stuff, we will issue you Rook tokens. So it was like I could trade like USDC to ETH and then get some like extra Rook tokens. And that Rook tokens would make it like profitable for me to arb the other pool. So I would just swap on their platform, like $1 on their platform, then get 2 cents of Rook and then like arb it back on Uniswap or whatever. At the end of the day, I would lose no money, but I would get a free 2 cents of Rook. And then I would dump that 2 cents of Rook on the market and I would make money, right? And the Rook team would collect some like fees or some MEV or some difference or whatever in the original swap. So effectively, if you squish the whole cycle together, they have given people Rook in exchange for tokens like USDC and ETH into the treasury, right? And so now all the Rook holders are essentially people that are buying up the AMM. So Rook holders are spending money on Rook tokens, which are getting dumped to fund the treasury. So Rook holders literally fund the treasury. And then they go and say, let's take the whole treasury and give it to not Rook holders. Let's give it to ourselves, and let's take all the IP and give 100% of it to ourselves, and we're going to start a private company. So that obviously...
A private company?
A private company. The DAO is dead. The token is gone. We own it all, right? And they claim
it's like an inverse buyout.
Yeah, it was just like, it was crazy. So like, and they claimed legal reasons and they were in court for something. I don't know. But at the end of the day, like, token holders fucking fought on that one. Like, people were tweeting, I was tweeting, like even CoinDesk was writing articles. Like, it was extremely dramatic. Like, I was scared the team was going to try to like dox me, because like at that point I had very little money on the line, but I was like emotionally frustrated. I was like, this is morally wrong. And for the rest of DeFi, like, this cannot be the way. Like, if another project saw this, they would just take inspo and be like, oh, I can just keep the treasury. But no, your token holders own your treasury. Like, it makes you a security argument was so bad because they did buybacks in the past. They like have proposals where they're like, sell Convex, buy back Rook. And it is like, so in the past, you weren't a security when you do buybacks, but now it makes you a security. Like, they're finding any reason to. And then on top of that, this is a startup. Like, what should a person's salary be in a startup? Like 60 to 70K, maybe 100K. Like, you're grinding for this thing. Top leadership was getting $300,000 a year in salaries. Like, that's Goldman Sachs level of salaries. Like, you know what I mean? You're not only are you draining the treasury with massive salaries, but you're also now want to take the holding for yourselves. But anyways, after a huge public war, really hurt their like public reputations and ended up flipping. So holders got 80%.
Nice.
Team got 20%. Now the team is off with a lot of money to build their own business and do their private thing, and holders got to split 80%. I think, there's still some unfairities there, but at the end of the day, it's so much more reasonable, right? So anyway, now there's a vote for Aragon Legal, which is the group that's also suing the Spartacus DAO, to be funded with $300,000 from the DAO to sue the association and its members for these recent actions. I think it's going to vote like very shortly, and I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Isn't the lesson from both Aragon and previously Nouns that pure crypto native, fully on-chain DAOs won't work because the minority shareholders don't have the legal recourse in situations like that?
So it depends. Like with Aragon, it's that the money was actually in the association. So holders didn't even get to vote.
Two questions. One is, what do you think about the market? Maybe we can start with that, and then we can talk a bit more about what are some of the undercover gems that you're seeing today that could become a household name in the next bull run.
So starting with the current market, crypto has died 3 times. And people are saying now crypto is dead again. It's like, if you just look historically, it always came back. And if there's one thing you can guarantee is humans love to gamble, and it's coming back. Like, that's it. Like,
how do you see that? What metrics do you look for to see that?
I mean, just the number going up, right? Like, every single cycle is like that cycle of froth, and then it dies down, and then froth, and then it dies down, and we build, and froth, and it dies down, we build, and then froth is like, you've seen it 3 times. How can you say that after seeing it 3 times, you believe it'll never happen again and not happen a 4th time? It's like, historically, the odds of it going to 0 are 0, and the odds of it happening again are 100%. So just based on that alone, it's coming back. Now is just when, right? Crypto has been battle tested too many times for it to disappear forever. Now, I think the Bitcoin halving narrative is real. Usually what we need is like Bitcoin to send, and then people to be like, oh, wait, but Ethereum is better money, and then Ethereum to send, and then froth, and then we play again, right? And I'm personally waiting for that to happen. And I think it's inevitably going to happen in 2024 or 2025. And I'm positioned by buying Ethereum because I do believe in ETH is better money, right? If you just look at a chart of Bitcoin issuance, it's up only. And if you look at a chart of ETH issuance, it's down only, right? I think you zoom out 1,000 miles, that's all you really need to know, right? And as people use ETH more and more, it's effectively like a company that has a ton of revenues and buybacks and burns with 0 expenses, right? It's like, if you invest in something like Apple or Google, it's true that at some point they could spend a lot of expenses and they could be losing money and the company could go to 0. But with Ethereum, like, there's no engineering cost. It just runs with 0 expenses, and all of the revenues, not even the profits, buy back and burn the token. Like, it is the greatest Ponzi tokenomics we've ever seen. And we didn't get to see it in full effect last cycle because the burn wasn't live and proof of stake wasn't live. But now we have proof of stake, we have burn, and we have like years of trust of Ethereum that the layer 2s don't have. And I don't think Ethereum is fighting the layer 2s, but I think layer 2 adoption will happen. But even today, you see any good NFT is on Ethereum. Any good yield farm is on Ethereum, right? Like it's like just small money playing around on layer 2s. Whenever I make a trade, I make that trade on layer 2 and I bring my money back to ETH because I still am scared that like something's going to go wrong on this like cheap side chain, right? Like look what happened to Phantom stables or not the native USDC. So I do think layer 2s will win will take off at some point. I still think next cycle ETH fees will be high just from like utility and people wanting to like mint NFTs, do yield farms and just regular stuff that happened last time. Now with the better burn. So up 2024, 2025 is like my overall look. Then what do I think is undervalued in the market right now?
Sorry, DCF, quick question. Price target for ETH 2025?
2025 price target for ETH higher than last time. So like at least 6 to 10K kind of thing.
Nice.
You know, like that would be like a reasonable price target. I'm not trying to be like some crazy like bull person, but I think if we had the burn last time, the crazy high fees and the narrative of ETH is money, if we got to 4K before, well, we can get to 6K this time, 6 to 10, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that in terms of overall market. Then like trades I think are still undervalued or like worth taking right now. There's still some like good DAOs that trade below treasury value, right? Like and things crypto Twitter loves to FUD. Like JPEG right now, if you look at the treasury value per token, like the book value, it is like 50% upside still. And that's like all in ETH, mostly ETH and USDC. So for me, I'm like every time I want to buy ETH, I usually would just buy JPEG a little bit instead. And that's because I trust, like, you know, obviously not all of my ETH, but a little bit, right? Because I trust that team because I know the team is like Tetranode and DeFi God, right? And they have far more to lose than just this project. And over the bear market, they're one of the only few projects that grew their treasury, whereas every other project like spent on salaries and like the treasury shrunk. In this case, the treasury grew and their convex revenues cover their burn. So I know that the downside risk is poor, is like almost nothing actually. And the upside potential is either worst case book value, 1x cash, 50% upside, or if they end up building something highly valuable and NFTs come back, multiples of that. So I think that's just like a really healthy trade to take in the bear market and fits my thesis for while I'm waiting for froth, right? Another example of a trade I like right now, that's not like, okay, I'm not trying to do like the moon math on like, oh, maybe this will be a household name, but I just think this is an undervalued healthy trade, is also USDR. Like that was another example of crypto Twitter fudding the like life out of it, right? So crypto Twitter is saying like, oh man, this is Terra Luna all over again. It's a housing Ponzi, it's going to zero. But really, the truth is, if you look at their website, they have an announcement saying, we have 80 cents per dollar in real estate if you mark everything else to zero. So even if you then say, okay, maybe they have slippage costs and selling their real estate and things like that, call it 70 cents. You can currently buy USDR for 50 cents. Like that's 50% upside just to their real estate value. And then is the team going to be able to do anything else? I don't know, but they have an infinite buy wall right now at 52 cents. So what they're trying to do is buy back USDR from the market at less than 80 cents. And if they are able to acquire enough, then the collateral ratio creeps up and up and up that the real estate could end up backing the whole thing again. So for me, I find that like a pretty healthy, good trade. I'm thinking, okay, I could farm in DSR at 5%, or I can get this like plus 50% when these guys sell these houses. Maybe it takes 2 to 3 months, but it's still very healthy returns. So those are the trades I still like in the current time that are still active, that I can still size into, that I do size into. Of course, not financial advice. I don't think anyone should take those trades. I'm just saying I'm taking them. Do whatever you want to do.
Well, Qiao, you had a question, right?
Just a quick comment that the fact that you're so attracted by these lower book value assets alongside your name DCF.
Yeah, it works.
That just reveals so much about you.
The last one you're asking is like household name. So, I mean, this is the most hated coin in all of crypto, but for me, it's Synapse. And I think right now, Synapse is trading at 80 mil FDV, right? And I just put up a tweet being like, what should the FDV of layer 0 be? The like most voted thing was 6 billion plus. And there's like people I'm seeing that are saying that they think layer 0 should be 8 billion. Like Synapse literally started by, I'm pretty sure they forked layer 0. And then now they added a bunch of code on top of it to do their cross-chain messaging. And their cross-chain messaging isn't out yet, but it's in testnet. Like it's actually built and supposedly it's good. That's like 100x upside if they can hit like become layer 0 competitor. Yeah, they have a long way to go with adoption and things like that. But then on top of just that, you have the bridge. And the closest bridge, let's say across, is a 70 mil FDV. And it's not like their bridge isn't working. It's generating tons of real fees with real users that's making money. So it's priced maybe just for the bridge. So you get a lot of optionality on this like cross-chain messaging thing. Then the third thing is SynChain. SynChain is like a chain of chains and it's in testnet right now. It's like literally a direct competitor with Optimism. It's like an optimistic roll-up on Ethereum. Give me any layer 2 that's like with a trusted team that trades at like an 80 mil cap. It doesn't exist, right? So you get all three of those bets in one. Like if they are able to hit their stride, get some real users, get some adoption on SynChain, get a few cross-chain messaging protocols, I think this thing re-rates like by multiples. So that's my like moon bet.
Do you know the team behind Synapse? Are they Anon?
They're Anon. I don't know them so well, but there was like some ex-Coinbase people that used to work there. I've like DM'd Aurelius before. Like I've looked at their GitHub. They're actually shipping. Like SynChain is actually in testnet. There's just been a lot of FUD around them because a couple of people left recently and because they made a bad deal with those like Nima Capital people that just like dumped a bunch of the tokens and disappeared.
That's right. Nima just like insta dumped everything and liquidated.
But that was like, yeah, that was like a little bit their fault for trusting them with their tokens, but it wasn't their fault for like knowing that Nima would suddenly go bankrupt and dump everything on their books.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll be able to legally claw that stuff back. And like, I think that was a huge mistake, but I'm willing to forgive them for it. And obviously I'm sized, it's like a moon bag. It's not like an RFV trade. It's a moon bag. You're asking for like what I think would be like a 100x household name. I think that's the bet I'm making, or I would make.
Cool. Would you ever Degen on Solana?
Yeah, so I invested in a couple of Solana projects and they all kind of were like big flops. So for me, I'm just like a little tainted. I haven't taken part in the most recent Solana kind of like run up and buzz, but it's given me hope that this is all coming back. People want it, obviously. And although I missed like this one, that's okay. You can miss the first one as long as you just don't miss the next one. So I'll catch you on whatever ecosystem blows up next.
Awesome. I think we're at time. Any final words before we finish up?
No, nothing for me. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, great chatting. And Qiao, any final comments?
No, this was so much fun. And this is so different from every episode we've done so far.
Okay, I'm glad.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome. You guys should get some Anatas. Let me introduce you to Haro on the team, and he can like help you get a setup, help you choose one, any questions you have, like maybe even make you some honoraries if you guys join the community and like them.
I would love to do it.
Yeah, same.
That'd be sick.
Down.
Yeah, let me make a little group chat after this.
All right, good chatting.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I've learned a lot through that conversation. But the first thing that I learned was the fact that there's so much nuance to every protocol, right? And for anyone that wants edge in this community, you have to really be in the trenches. And when I see VCs and others tweet about how DeFi should be governed or etc., I take it with a grain of salt because what I've learned from DCF is the fact that he was in the trenches. He learned about how things don't have, like protocols don't have checks and balances, and how malicious actors can come and extract value. I mean, that was like one very interesting area that I learned. How about you?
Well, I learned that DCF God is probably someone who come from TradFi and then turn into a crypto native.
That's right.
I love the density of information and just so unique, so different from everything. Basically every episode we've done so far. I feel like everyone we've talked to so far, including you and I, are just a little bit too serious, maybe too I don't know, detached from the real users. And today we're talking to a real user.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're close, like to the metal. I mean, you and I, Degen. I mean, I'm part of many Degen groups, but I don't think the people, like listeners and the community, know what really and how Degen communities operate and think.
Like for example, the three projects you mentioned right at the end, Synapse, JPEG, and what's the third one? USDR, Tangible.
Tangible, yeah.
And also he talked about Rook and stuff. Like these Rook, Synapse, and JPEG, like these three projects just are projects that the other side of crypto Twitter never talks about. Like
no, they don't.
It's a totally different world. It's always the Anons that talk about these three projects. Always.
Well, what's interesting is even if you think about the way they funded these projects, right? You have household VCs that funded the competitors to the three that he mentioned. Whereas if you look at JPEG, Synapse, and USDR or Tangible, I'm not so sure about Tangible, but for sure JPEG and Synapse was funded by Anons completely. And
Flood.
so
I remember Flood shilling Synapse like,
yes,
oh my God, every single day last year.
Flood did, so did Z Capital.
Z Capital, yes.
And there were many other Anons that went really public on Synapse. I mean, if you ask me what's the go-to bridge I use Synapse. So I agree with the thesis. Like there are two different, very distinct groups. And not only these groups don't know each other or they don't really overlap, but even now, if you think about the way they're funding the projects, they're funding the projects themselves as well without any VC capital. In fact, we talked about Prisma. Prisma was funded by Curve and other Degen communities, and that is the farm of this cycle.
Yeah.
And in fact, I saw some tweets from Banteg and others that said, I don't know about Banteg, sorry, Tetranode, that said, this is the YFI of this cycle. I'm not sure how true that is or whatnot. Maybe it's just people shilling the project.
There will not be another Wi-Fi.
There'll never be the magical experience of Wi-Fi. I don't think will ever happen. But if it did, they're saying that this could be it.
By the way, it's interesting that Curve founded Prisma.
Funded, yeah.
Because the Curve guys, they hate VCs. They had this, remember the drama between them?
Yeah,
and,
they sued.
Or they got sued or they sued? They got sued. They got sued.
No, the VC sued Michael. And,
exactly. Yeah.
I think this is going to proliferate more in the next cycle, meaning that it's going to be bifurcated, right? So it's going to be bifurcated. And it's going to become more intense.
And it goes back to the previous bifurcation that we talked about, which is the crypto elite versus the crypto plebs.
Yep.
The elite feels extremely embarrassed to talk about speculation and trading. But DCF God that's his life. That's his life.
I mean, even if you think about like our conversation with nouns, like the nouns, I mean, a lot of, really important figures or people that have shilled nouns are part of the public VC community, right? And no one really wanted to talk about the bad of that, right? And partly because, it's a reputation, partly because they don't have time to manage or have the checks and balances and manage governance. And so it takes someone like DCF God to call out the BS that happens in all of the governance, typically on a day-to-day basis.
I feel like the Anon Degens, they are true activist investors. Like
That's right.
They are way more activists than the professionals, the self-proclaimed professional activists.
Yeah, I think the professionals are more thought leaders. I wouldn't say all, but like some, right? And they talk about what they envision and they'll invest in startups, branding, stuff like that. And that's kind of their like cycle in terms of deal flow. And then you have these activist Degen community members that are trying, they're in the trenches, they're trying out the products, they're getting burned. They're starting to invest in their own startups and building out those communities. So I think from a macro perspective, you could see two distinct versions of DeFi, maybe, right? One is like TradFi DeFi, which is kind of true today, right? If you look at what Robert Leshner's doing and others, they're building this kind of like TradFi KYC rails.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see this Anon community that's going to completely be anonymous. And they're going to build this like no KYC, permissionless DeFi that anyone can use. And it will be battle tested through activism. Whereas the regulated DeFi will be battle tested through regulations.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a very interesting insight.
What else?
Oh, this was an interesting one of him investing in startups in the bull market and then getting burned.
Yeah.
And then one thing that stood out to me, which is the question you and I ask founders all the time, is like, is this your life's work? Like, are you 100% dedicated to this?
Yeah.
And it turns out investors don't ask this often, right? I thought that was a very, very interesting insight from him because not most people don't ask for this.
Yeah. The other really interesting, probably one of the most important piece of advice for DeFi founders of all time is that to get your first 10 to 100 users, you just got to DM the Anon whales on Twitter. There is no shortcut. There's nothing creative that works better than this.
And they're open to even giving 1% of their TVL or 1% of their own AUM to help you bootstrap your TVL.
Yeah.
But what I think they look for in return is like audit, right? I think audit was
trail of bit, tier 1 auditors, doxed founders, reasonable mechanism, real yields, not 10,000% APRs that just fade away after 2 days, that kind of stuff. Oh, he said something really interesting, which is that everyone got smarter.
Everyone got smarter.
Everyone got smarter.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, another insight. People are looking for value traders, right? Like what's trading at book value and what's trading 50% of book value. And what they're doing is they're coming in as a community. And funny enough, I saw this tweet a couple weeks ago. Some Anon dude says, if you see DCF God buying something, there's probably a lot of value there. or if you see him lurking in a Discord, insta buy that token because it's probably undervalued.
By the way, I really need a copy trading product myself.
It's too much.
There's too much going on. I would love to copy trade DCF God and just Donald and the other degens.
Yeah, I would love that too. We're seeing a number of them, but nothing that's hit critical mass
and
yet.
Apparently there will be one in our next cohort.
Yeah. And I think there's a feature on Thunder, Versify, where you can paste in the wallet address and it'll automatically copy the trade as well.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. Another cool insight is how crypto Twitter's echo chamber, right? How polarized it can get to the point where token values are affected by it. So much so that it becomes a great buy, but most people just destroy it through sentiment. It turns out that, those are great buying opportunities, which, I mean, you and I already knew, but it's good to hear from others as well. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. So do you have any final comments, Qiao?
I really miss DeFi Summer. That's it. I just don't have time to degen anymore. But I really wish I had time to get back to that game.
Maybe we will. It's coming soon. Well, maybe a final thought. I know we asked DCF God about the market. What do you think about the market? Do you agree with DCF God? Where do you see it going in the next 90 to 120 days?
I have no idea. Okay, here's a contrarian view. If you're really bullish on Ethereum in the next cycle, you might as well just buy Solana, because Solana is going to outperform Ethereum.
That's right. Yeah.
But his price target does make sense to me. 6,000 to 10,000 per ETH. That would put Bitcoin to like 69 to 100,000. That feels reasonable. I don't think we'll get a 5x again. If we can double in the next cycle, I will be pretty happy.
Yeah, Bitcoin.
But I have no idea when that's going to happen.
Yeah, to me, it seems like everyone was playing the ETF trade, and
the ETF trade. Everyone and their mother thinks that the ETF approval is the local top. I just don't know what to make of this anymore, because whenever everyone thinks the same thing, they usually get punished.
Yep.
So either we top before, like today, or we keep going up after the approval, and I have no idea which one it is.
Feel the same. Cool. It was great talk. So we'll end it here. So thanks so much for tuning into Good Game, and we'll catch you next time. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for listening to Good Game. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next week.